Hi, I'm Chad Bogart, Museum Curatorial Assistant at Sycamore Shoals State Historic Park, and we're back for our second segment of our Colonial Music program. We ended the first segment with the penny whistle, and so we're going to start off this segment with another wind instrument. And this is a military instrument. This is called the fife, and it was used alongside the drum in the Continental Army during the time of the American Revolution, kind of the same way the bugle would be used in later years. It was used to wake the soldiers up in the morning. Different tunes were played throughout the day to tell them when to muster for inspection or to eat. All the different aspects of the day were laid out by different tunes played by the fife and drum corps. Also, fifes and drums were used to play music for the soldiers as they marched from one spot to the next, and also on the battlefield. In the 18th century, battles consisted of black powder muskets and cannons, and so the loud noises on the battlefield, the explosions, the smoke, all the confusion could sometimes hinder the soldiers from hearing their commands given by their officers. So different commands would be relayed by the use of the fife. It has a very high-pitched sound, and so different tunes could be played for different commands, such as advance or retreat. And so it was very much used as a communications device on the battlefield. So we're going to play a couple of tunes for you on the fife. The first tune I'm sure you'll be very familiar with. That is Yankee Doodle. And the story behind the song of Yankee Doodle is pretty interesting. So, Yankee Doodle went to town. Yankee Doodle. So, Yankee was a term that the British, a derogatory term that the British used to talk about the Americans. Yankee Doodle. He's a doodler. He doesn't do anything but just piddle around all day. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony. Well, men don't ride ponies, they ride stallions. Only women and children ride ponies, so Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his hat, and called it macaroni. Well, macaroni is not the tasty pasta dish that we enjoy today. Back then, macaroni was a fashion style, a very flamboyant, over-the-top fashion style that originated in France. And so just by sticking a feather in his cap, he calls it macaroni. So it's a very derogatory song that the British would play to make fun of the American soldiers. Well, after the American soldiers started winning battles, they would play that tune as they marched away to kind of thumb their nose at the British. So I'm going to play another tune for you, and this one is called the British Grenadiers. So the British Grenadiers was a song about some of the most feared soldiers in the British Army, the Grenadiers. And in the 18th century, people had the habit of taking a tune that they liked the sound of and changing the words to the song. And so the Americans were not to be outdone when they heard a good tune like the British Grenadiers. They changed the name of the song and changed the tune to War and Washington. So, moving on to some stringed instruments. We talked a lot about instruments from the British Isles, and another culture that was very prevalent here in the American colonies was that of the enslaved Africans. And they brought with them a very vibrant musical culture as well. And so today we get our modern day banjo from an instrument that the folks from West Africa brought to the colonies. There are two instruments, one called the conting and one called the ngoni, and they are the great-great-great-great-grandfathers of today's banjo. And so they first show up in the Caribbean, where the term banjer is born, and then that instrument, which kind of looks like this here, it's created out of a gourd with an animal skin stretched on it. The strings back in that day would have been gut strings, animal gut strings, and a fretless neck. So an instrument that looked very much like this would have made its way from the Caribbean up to the colonies, up into Georgia and South Carolina and Virginia. So we're going to play a couple of, play one song here. The style that is played is called, we would call it claw hammer today, or frailing, and this is directly brought over from the same style that is used in West Africa. That's the banjo, or the banger as it was called back in those days. Moving on to our final instrument that we're going to share with you today. And this instrument kind of shows up a little bit past the colonial period. So in the late 1700s, early 1800s, you begin to see an instrument called the dulcimer. And there are two types of dulcimers. There's one which is a very large instrument called a hammered dulcimer, played with two little wooden hammers, many strings. And this one is called a lap dulcimer, or a mountain dulcimer. And it's played by laying it on your lap. And it was developed right here in the Appalachian region of the United States. And it's kind of a combination of different cultures coming together to create this type of instrument. The shape of the instrument, and also the playing of it in your lap, is brought over from the German zithers, or scheitholt as they're sometimes called, which was just a box with strings attached to the top of it and tuners added. So that's the German influence, which was a large population here in the colonies at that time. Also, it encompasses more strings that you do not note while you're playing it. You just play them as an open note, and so you get this drone sound that sounds kind of like the Scottish bagpipes. And then you have the tunes that would be played on this would be fiddle tunes from Ireland and England and Scotland, tunes that would have been brought over from the old country. So this is a combination of all these different cultures coming together to create a unique American instrument, the mountain dulcimer. Hope you've enjoyed these sessions on music in colonial America.